The media keeps massaging Andrew Cuomo and Joe Biden. The left has begun censoring itself, and there might just be a way to get President Nancy Pelosi. Oh yeah, let's get into it. This week, the wonderful Andrew Cuomo had an interview with Whoopi Goldberg, a very hard-hitting journalist. In that interview, I was a little confused. I didn't know if they were talking about Harry Potter or the corona situation. Check it out, and then you tell me.
And coronavirus is now the third leading cause of death in America. And you say, and rightfully so, I think, but I'm going to ask you, you're holding you-know-who
Voldemort?
responsible for every death in New York from COVID. I'm going to say to you, why?
I'm holding you-know-who.
Andrew's talking about Voldemort.
They were totally incompetent in what they did. He keeps talking about the China virus, and trying to demonize China. The virus did not come here from China.
The virus didn't come from China? Yeah, it did. Oh, I see. You're saying that to discredit Trump's move of closing the border to China early in the game. However, even the exalted Dr. Fauci said he saved thousands of lives by doing that. Closing the border.
Very heavily discussed. Were you involved in working with President Trump on deciding to ban flights from China?
Yes, sir, I was.
Do you agree with that decision?
I do.
Do you think that decision saved lives, Dr. Fauci?
Yes, I do.
You know, that's a great question, Mr. Holt. The reason I think that there's a real problem, one of the things we did right was very early cut off travel from China to the United States.
What's wrong with this guy? He had like a mural done about how he handled the pandemic, and then he wrote a book about how well he handled the pandemic. Excuse me, sir? 33,000 people died in your state. Excuse me, sir? Andrew Cuomo's incompetence put infected people with our most vulnerable population. And then he writes a book about how he handled the pandemic. Oh my God. And they call Trump a narcissist. There are no words to describe Andrew Cuomo's handling of the pandemic other than incompetent. But the media, they will have you think otherwise. Andrew Cuomo is handling the pandemic like a real leader should. While we're on the subject of media darlings, let's talk about Joe Biden. In the last few months, we've seen an incredible amount of censorship coming from the left, mainstream media, and big tech censorship. Several prominent editors had to resign from the newspapers because of their woke staff, like what happened in the New York Times. And now, it happened to Glen Greenwald. Glenn is a journalist who I would consider to be on the left, but he's really good at his job. He's one of the journalists who leaked the Snowden files. Glenn, seeing how crazy the media had gotten, founded his own publisher, his own newspaper, the Intercept. He's a co-founder. And yesterday, he had to resign because the editors in the paper decided to censor him. Now, being ostracized from the mainstream media, he went to Tucker Carlson tonight to explain what happened. Check it out.
Maintain a democratic system when reality itself has been banned. That's something we're going to have to figure out. Glen Greenwald has thought a lot about that question. Greenwald is a traditional leftist. He's committed above all to forcing transparency on people who hold power. Years ago, Greenwald co-founded a news site called The Intercept. Today he resigned. In a statement, Greenwald explained why. Quote, "The Intercept's editors, in violation of my contractual right of editorial freedom, censored an article I wrote this week, refusing to publish it unless I removed all sections critical of Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden, the candidate vehemently supported by all New York-based Intercept editors involved in this effort at suppression." Glenn, thanks so much for coming on. The idea of you resigning from a news organization you helped found is stunning. Tell us why you did.
Well, the news organization that I co-created was in 2013 at the height of the Snowden reporting. I left The Guardian to do it because I was seeing that there were a lot of constraints imposed on journalism and our ability to report freely against governments, against power centers, against all kinds of institutions that wield authority. And the premise of the news outlet, the core overarching premise, the reason it was created was to ensure that journalists would always have complete journalistic independence and editorial freedom, never have to pull punches journalistically or pay homage to pieties because of the preferences, the partisan or ideological preferences of editors or of anybody else. That was the core founding idea and vision. And then that is what makes it so amazing that at the very outlet that I co-created, that was built on my reputation, my credibility, my journalistic accomplishments, then tried to intervene to censor me 6 days before an election because I wanted to publish reporting and analysis about the evidence that raises serious questions about the conduct of the candidate that all of the editors at that outlet vehemently and enthusiastically support. So The Intercept was actually, for a while, a unique publication, and I think the vision I just described is one reason, but another was that it was intended, above all else, to be highly skeptical of the claims of intelligence agencies. At the time when we were doing the reporting, the attacks were coming from the NSA, the CIA, the deep state against me, against my source Edward Snowden, and against the reporting. And we knew they were lying constantly and disseminating propaganda in a very powerful way. So we set out to say, we're going to investigate them. We're going to be skeptical of them. We're going to subject their assertions to critical scrutiny. And I am so embarrassed and angered that the media outlet that I created, along with two other excellent journalists, to do that, the only article it published about all of these documents that have emerged about Joe Biden, other than a column of mine where I denounced Facebook and Twitter for censoring it, was an article that made reference in passing to those documents very snidely and dismissively to say that no one should pay attention to it because it was Russian disinformation, and it cited a letter from John Brennan, James Clapper, Mike Hayden, and the rest of the goons from the CIA and the intelligence community asserting it. And worse still, that letter said, we have no evidence that Russia's involved in any of this. The Intercept omitted that phrase, simply cited that letter to try and encourage people to ignore this evidence on the grounds that Russia had manufactured it and that the evidence was fabricated, even though there's never been any evidence for that's been true. And everything since has disproven it, showing Russia was not involved in any of this, and nobody, certainly not even Joe Biden, disputes that these emails and other text messages are completely real and authentic.
It's horrifying. So what you're watching is agencies of the U.S. government turning their awesome and unconstrained powers against the American population.
This is the real story of the last 4 years of the Trump administration, which is that for a long time on the left, there was a healthy skepticism of the CIA.
Yes, there was.
There was a lot of anti-war activism in the Bush and Cheney years. That has all disappeared. And the reason it's disappeared is because the CIA, from the very first days of the Trump administration, even before he was inaugurated, devoted themselves to sabotaging the administration because Donald Trump questioned just a few of their pieties. And that can't be done in Washington. Whoever does that must be destroyed. And so the CIA and the deep state operatives became heroes of the liberal left, the people who support the Democratic Party. They're now in a full union with the neocons, the Bush-Cheney operatives, the CIA, Silicon Valley, and Wall Street. That is the union of power, along with mainstream media outlets that are fully behind the Democratic Party, which is likely to at least take over one branch of government, if not all of them, in the coming election. And that is a very alarming proposition because they're authoritarian, they believe in censorship, and they believe in suppression of information that exposes them in any kind of a critical light.
For a U.S. government agency to try and disseminate propaganda within the United States, I mean, is there any clearer attack on democracy than that?
Same with the CIA. They're trained disinformation agents. That's what they do. They lie for a living. But they're supposed to do that in other countries where we want to induce some sort of change, overthrow a government, topple a regime, whatever quote-unquote interference the U.S. government wants to do, the way we're also upset that Russia did in 2016. That's what they're trained to do. The law, though, and the obvious foundational prohibition on having a security state, a national security state after World War II, was it was never supposed to be turned domestically. They weren't supposed to be involved in our politics or disseminating propaganda. Go turn on any of those other cable networks or pick up the op-ed page of any of the biggest newspapers, and all you'll see are ex-members of the CIA, the DOJ, the FBI, the NSA telling Americans what they ought to believe. They've infiltrated the means of communication domestically. They do it through leaks. They do it through clandestine operations and through lies. They propagandize the American people in a way that is incredibly dangerous no matter what your ideology is.
I totally agree, and I'm ashamed of the times that I made apologies for those agencies or this behavior. I really am. You are telling the truth. That's really clear. Glen Greenwald, congratulations on getting out of there.
How much more proof do you need that the media is protecting Biden and basically the mainstream Democrats? How much more proof do you need? And by the way, the FBI has confirmed that they have been investigating Hunter Biden not since the laptop came out. They've been investigating Hunter Biden since 2019, and they're still investigating him. So when you see in MSNBC and CNN that the Russian disinformation, don't believe it. The FBI is actually investigating them because they're dirty. I saw a story about a car caravan, Trump supporters, and a funeral car, Trump supporter, following around the Biden-Harris bus. And I thought it was fake news, whatever, I didn't believe it. But then I saw a video and it's pretty funny. I'm going to show it to you, but pay close attention to what's written on the back of the hearse funeral car. Close attention.
Yeah, we just said something about there's a Trump rally coming to Houston. All right, the asshole waiting for the light.
Very nice, I like. You know what else I like? America's favorite number. No, not 1, 69. But unfortunately, that number may come back to haunt us. It's possible that it gives us our first woman president. And I'm not saying it's going to haunt us because it's going to give us our first woman president. I'm saying it's going to haunt us because of who it is. And no, I'm not talking about Kamala. I'm talking about President Nancy Pelosi. Let me explain. It's possible that we get a 269 to 269 electoral college tie. This map here would represent such nightmare scenario. If there's a tie, the vote would go to the House of Representatives, which is dominated by the GOP right now. Good, right? Trump will win. Wait, not so fast. The voting would take place after the swearing in. So, if Pennsylvania and Florida flip Democrat, then by congressional delegation, we would have a 25 to 25 tie. And then we would need the Senate to vote for a VP, who would then act as acting president until the House can break the tie. However, it is quite possible that the Senate ties 50-50. And then what? Well then, ladies and gentlemen, January 20 comes around and the Presidential Succession Act kicks in, and there you go. There you have it. Our first woman president. Not Hillary, not Kamala, Pelosi. Crazy Nancy. Last, I want to give you 2 examples of how the left, which I was part of a couple of years ago, has become so intolerant. After the confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett, the Girl Scouts posted a picture and a tweet congratulating her for becoming the 5th Supreme Court Justice that's a woman. He posted a picture with all the women Supreme Court justices. The left had a meltdown over this. And when I say the left, it's the radical left. The Girl Scouts were forced to take the post down and apologize. Ayanna Pressley, one of the wonderful members of the wonderful squad, said this: "What kind of patch does one earn for uplifting a woman who is the antithesis of justice?" Why is she the antithesis of justice? Because you disagree with what she has to say? I think she's more qualified than you to do any job. Any job in this earth. So she should probably be uplifted and you should probably be happy about it. And then we have the very nice Don Lemon of CNN saying how he had to cut off all his relationships with people who disagreed with him politically. Take a listen.
I have many people who I love in my life. And yeah, I come from a red state. I've lived in several red states. There are a lot of friends who I had to really get rid of because they are so nonsensical when it comes to this issue. They have every single talking point that they hear on state TV and that they hear from this president. They repeat it and they are blinded by it. And when I said to you the other night, there's no way, they can't believe it. They can't, I was just goosing you in a way, right? You know what they say, I was,
Goosing
I was breaking
works.
your,
Goosing works. It's not like that'll be all over the internet. Continue.
But here's the thing. I had to get rid of them because they are too far gone. I try and I try and I try. They'll say something really stupid and then I'll show them the science and I'll give them the information and they still repeat those talking points. And all the while...
Also, this is fake news because not only is it CNN, but does anyone here believe that Don Lemon has any Republican or right-wing or Trump supporting friends? I don't believe it. Fake news. It's fake news. Whose media treatment do you find more disgusting? The wonderful treatment that Biden and Andrew Cuomo get, or the negative treatment that Trump gets? Comment your opinion down below. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe. Ginger out.